John Cena's decision to align with The Rock wasn't just shocking, it was strategic. It signified a complete departure from the Cena we had known for 2 decades. If we look at his career trajectory, we realize that this transformation wasn't just a one-off moment of desperation. It was a slow burn, a culmination of years of frustration, and ultimately, an evolution of his character. Unlike previous heel turns in WWE history, Cena's wasn't built on a sudden betrayal or a moment of weakness. It was carefully calculated. This wasn't a temporary shift in attitude. It was a reinvention. His partnership with The Rock is one of the most compelling aspects of his turn, considering their past rivalry, where Cena went to great lengths to discredit The Rock as a part-timer who left WWE for Hollywood. It's poetic that Cena himself would go down the very same road, only this time embracing it. The fact that they now stand together as allies rather than adversaries adds an extra layer of depth to this entire storyline. While The Rock has positioned himself as the final boss, Cena's role is just as intriguing. He's not just another henchman. He's a man with his own motivations, goals, and plans for this final year of his career. John Cena's heel turn broke the internet after it happened at Elimination Chamber 2025. A lot has been said about it, but not many have spoken about the insane psychology behind it all. What led to John Cena's heel turn? Was this the plan all along? Were there clues thrown in between to indicate that this was happening? Join us as we dive into the insane psychology of John Cena's heel turn. John Cena becoming a villain was basically the equivalent of Superman turning to the dark side. Virtually every superstar in WWE history turns into a villain at some point. Legends like Rey Mysterio are the exception, not the rule. If you look at the faces of WWE throughout history, even Hulk Hogan was a heel. Although his run as a villain was primarily in WCW, he returned to WWE as a bad guy in 2002. The Rock became a villain in 2003 and had one of the best short-lived runs as a bad guy. But Stone Cold's turn to the dark side 2 years earlier was a complete flop. That was because nobody was ready to see Steve Austin become a bad guy. Add to that the underwhelming invasion angle in 2001 and Austin becoming a comedic character, and it's not hard to see why it left a lot to be desired. The same wasn't the case for John Cena though. Even in his first year as the face of the company in 2005, the John Cena Sucks crowd started growing in numbers after he was dispatching legend after legend, from the likes of Chris Jericho to Kurt Angle. Those negative voices grew louder each year as John Cena began to be viewed by some as the corporate golden boy who always had to come out on top. For WWE, that didn't matter. The shift to PG TV in 2008 meant that they were targeting kids and families, and that specific demographic loved John Cena. That was why he was genuinely polarizing back in his prime. We might look at Vince McMahon's stubbornness and refusal to change his character through a negative lens, but it's also not hard to see why he had such cold feet at the idea of a villainous Cena. By this point in the 2010s, Vince had invested far too much time and money into making Cena the public face of WWE. It became hard to justify the guy doing hundreds of Make-A-Wish requests turning to the dark side. Cena went as far as to reveal that during his rivalry against The Rock, leading up to WrestleMania 28 in 2012, WWE was finally set to pull the trigger on his heel turn. He had new music ready, new ring gear, and a brand new character. But just as everything was ready to go, Vince McMahon refused to pull the trigger. He just couldn't fathom the idea of the face of WWE becoming a villain. As Cena transitioned into part-time status by the end of 2015, putting one foot in Hollywood, the entire sentiment towards him started to shift. Suddenly, the reactions started to get less polarizing. Even the adult fans who couldn't stand him started to warm up to him. In 2016 and 2017, he put over superstars like AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, Bray Wyatt, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Roman Reigns. After years of being accused of burying younger stars, he chose to help pave the way for current top superstars, selflessly taking the pinfall. It was also this that led to him losing a considerable number of big matches, which is going to be really important later in this video, so make sure to stick around. His matches became increasingly farther apart, and absence made the heart grow fonder. When John Cena graced fans with his presence, it was always an occasion to celebrate, but he also became less relevant in the context of modern storylines. His impact was felt less by the year, and fans were lucky if he even competed once. In 2022, for example, he waited until December 30th to wrestle his only match that year. He also crossed paths with Roman Reigns, who ironically enough was held back because he was being pushed as the next John Cena. Unlike Cena, Roman Reigns put his foot down with Vince McMahon when he knew his character had reached as far as it could. That was when we saw the Tribal Chief. Even with Roman Reigns becoming a villain and fulfilling the potential many knew he always had, The same wasn't expected for John Cena. Even when he announced in 2025 his retirement tour, nobody expected it to go in the direction that it did. We all thought that we'd get a few storylines, some dream matches, and a big send-off in December. But this changes everything. We asked a few questions in the beginning, so it's time to answer them as we look at the incredible psychology behind John Cena's heel turn. What led to the turn? If John Cena just won the Elimination Chamber and set up a passing of the torch, good guy versus good guy match, it wouldn't have been nearly as enthralling. It would basically be like Cody Rhodes versus an older version of himself. Cody Rhodes is in his prime, and John Cena is in his final year. Along with a mismatch of circumstances, this is what led to the turn. Allow us to elaborate. It's crazy to think that Cody Rhodes needed to turn heel in AEW to ensure he stayed relevant. But his refusal to do so timed perfectly with his jump back to WWE. That bet worked out better than he could have ever hoped or expected. In this run alone, he had a classic trilogy with Seth Rollins, where he did a complete 3-0 whitewash. He had a victorious feud against Brock Lesnar, became the first person in nearly 3 decades to win back-to-back Royal Rumbles, headlined WrestleMania thrice in 2 years, and became the man to end the greatest world title reign of the 21st century. That's the kind of trust a company has in a superstar they want to put front and center. The idea of Cody Rhodes turning heel and becoming The Rock's champion is enticing, but it's more akin to Stone Cold in 2001. It would be random, and fans aren't ready to hate Cody, just like they weren't willing to hate Steve Austin 24 years ago. That's where it makes perfect sense for John Cena, the character, to try to usurp his power back in his final run. Cena crossed paths with his successor, Roman Reigns, and lost at SummerSlam 2021, adding a chip on his shoulder. John Cena was graceful about his defeat. Even 2 years later on SmackDown, when he confronted Roman Reigns, he had the dignity to admit that he wasn't deserving of it. This set up LA Knight's path to the world title picture. Knowing his past failures against his successor Roman Reigns only adds greater motivation for Cena to do everything he can against Cody Rhodes, the man who is now in the position that Cena was in over a decade ago. Good old classy John Cena wasn't going to cut it anymore, and it gave him a reason to take a different route after 20 years of being a good guy. The fact that it's his last year has visibly been at the forefront of why he made the decision to join The Rock. For years, Cena had dismissed the notion of ever turning heel, claiming that it would be a disservice to the fans who supported him throughout his career. He always emphasized that his character was a reflection of his real-life persona, someone who thrived on hard work, respect, and perseverance. But this turn reveals a darker truth, that John Cena, deep down, has always had the capability to embrace the villainous role. He just never had a reason to, until now. One of the biggest arguments against Cena turning heel in the past was his ability to sell merchandise. WWE made millions off his colorful t-shirts, hats, and wristbands. Kids idolized him, and his presence in the company was synonymous with its PG image. But as he transitioned into a part-time role and then announced his retirement tour, WWE no longer needed him to be the face of the brand. That responsibility had shifted to stars like Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. With that burden lifted, Cena was finally free to explore the side of his character that had been suppressed for so long. Cena's evolution is also a response to the changing WWE landscape. When he was the top guy, WWE had a very different structure. There were clear-cut heroes and villains, and storylines followed a more traditional approach. Today's WWE is far more layered. Characters have depth, motivations are more nuanced, and fans appreciate complexity. Roman Reigns' rise as the tribal chief proved that a well-executed heel turn could elevate a star beyond anything they had done before. Cena was aware of this shift, and it's likely that he wanted to make sure his final run was as impactful as possible. A key element of his transformation is his newfound ruthlessness. Gone are the days of the ever-smiling, never-give-up Cena. Now, he's willing to take shortcuts, exploit opportunities, and manipulate situations to get what he wants. This was evident in the way he won the Elimination Chamber match. The old Cena would have hesitated to capitalize on CM Punk's weakened state, but this Cena showed no remorse, locking in the STF with a level of intensity we had never seen before. It wasn't just about winning, it was about sending a message. He was no longer bound by the expectations of being the hero. The psychological aspect of his turn is perhaps the most fascinating. It's not just about Cena wanting one more world title. It's about the need to prove that he still belongs. For years, fans have debated whether Cena was truly as great as WWE presented him to be. They pointed to his predictable moveset, his reliance on the same promos, and his tendency to always come out on top. Now, Cena is showing that he doesn't need to be the squeaky clean hero to prove his greatness. In fact, he's arguably more compelling now than he has been in years. Another element to consider is how this impacts Cody Rhodes. The dynamic between Cena and Cody is one of the most unique aspects of this story. Cena sees in Cody what he once was, the golden boy, the chosen one, the man WWE has invested in as the future of the company. But rather than embracing Cody as his successor, Cena resents him. He sees Cody as the embodiment of everything he lost. It's a fascinating contrast. Cena is nearing the end of his career, while Cody is in his prime. Cena is trying to cling to relevancy, while Cody is solidifying his legacy. This conflict makes their WrestleMania match far more than just a passing of the torch moment. There's also the question of how the WWE Universe will react to Cena's new persona in the long run. While the initial shock of his turn has generated an overwhelmingly negative response, there's a chance that fans will start to appreciate this version of Cena even more than his previous one. We've seen it happen before. When Roman Reigns turned heel in 2020, he was initially despised, but over time, he became one of the most respected characters in WWE. The same could happen with Cena. Cena's involvement with The Rock adds another interesting dynamic. The Rock, for all his charisma and influence, has been playing the role of the ultimate puppet master. It's unclear whether Cena truly believes in The Rock's vision, or if he's simply using him as a means to an end. While The Rock has his own agenda, Cena's motivations seem more personal. The desire to prove himself, the hunger for one last world title reign, the need to cement his legacy in a way that nobody can dispute. All of these factors play into his transformation. What makes this entire storyline even more compelling is the unpredictability of where it will go next. Does Cena win the title and retire on top? Or does he suffer a heartbreaking loss and fade into the background? If he does win, what happens next? Will he embrace his role as WWE's new top villain, or will he eventually have a redemption arc? There are so many possibilities, and that's what makes this one of the most fascinating character shifts in recent WWE history.